Well, good morning and welcome to the fourth and final day of OSU Medicine 411. It's been a fantastic week and we are so excited to finish the live portion of the program with all of you today. We also want to say a big thank you to our sponsors for allowing us to put on this program, and here is a quick thank you to them. Ellison Henley, a second-year medical student, is going to be going through some commonly asked questions with all of you today. I would like to encourage you to message me at the OSU Center for Health Sciences account if you think of any questions during the live session. We'll do our best to get them answered live. After this session, be sure to check out our main 411 page. You can see our campus and learn more about what is available to you. You can also find a form to fill out a quick and easy worksheet to win a free face mask there as well. And here is what that would look like. So as for now, I will hand it over to Ellie.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Like she said, my name is Ellison Henley. I go by Ellie. I am a second-year medical student at OSU, which I have just absolutely loved. And so I'm just here to answer any questions you all have about what med school looks like, what the process looks like, what you should be doing now in high school, and all of those types of things. And so I have a list of questions I can run through with you all, and then you guys are free to ask any questions as well. For those of y'all who don't know, we're all working from home, and so I'm doing this remotely as well, trying to get it to work and run smoothly, so forgive me. We'll pull them up. So some of the first questions that we decide to go into medicine. And so everybody who like medicine, doesn't match up why I'm going. It's totally understandable. Everybody in my class has a different reason, and that is all what I've wanted to do since I was a little bit. And so I feel like throughout my life that just continued to show up. I had gone on various mission trips with my church in high school down into South America. We've gone to Ecuador and Nicaragua, and I think going on those trips I realized that this is the career that I want to go into. I want to be able to help people in every way that I can possibly do that. And for me, I loved science. I loved learning about medicine. And so getting to help people in that capacity just made the most sense. And so after that, I did everything I could do to make sure that getting into medical school would be a possibility and that I could fulfill that dream. I also have a lot of health issues in my family, and so getting to grow up helping both of my sisters with various health conditions was something that also pushed me towards wanting to be a physician. And so that's kind of what led me here. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I love every step of getting into medicine and deciding to do it, and so that's kind of where I got into this. And so like I said, if your story is different, if you have something else, that's awesome. Everyone has a unique story into getting into medicine, and that's what makes us all special and makes us all work together too. Another question we have on here is where I got my bachelor's degree from, what my major was. Does it have to be science-based? A lot of people think that they have to have a science major in order to go to medical school, and I'm here to tell you guys that that is not the case. So I got my bachelor's degree from the University of Oklahoma. Yes, Boomer Sooner, and now I am an OSU Cowboy, so you can go to both schools. That is okay. And I chose the major of psychology. It was super interesting to me. I had never had any psychology classes before, and so that was something that really interested me, and so I stuck with that throughout college, which I guess is kind of sciencey, but not as much as, say, a biology or a microbiology or something like that. And so I can attest to that. You don't have to have a hard science in order to go to medical school. But I also have friends who did other things. Like there are people who studied music, or people who didn't even study any type of science because they wanted to do a different career, and then they came back to medicine. So really what you should do is choose what best suits you. If you love history, do history, and then you'll do your prerequisites in addition to that. It does make it a little bit harder. It takes a little bit more time to figure that out, but schools are really interested in seeing what you're passionate about. And if that's something other than microbiology, then that's totally okay. let's see. We had a question, so we'll answer this one before the next thing if I can figure out how to see the question. Okay, first question is it possible to have a job in medical school? OSU offers a lot of really good job opportunities while you're in school. And so I'm actually working currently for the school. I work as a student ambassador in the student affairs office, which is involved in recruiting events, talking to prospective students, things like that. And I get paid to do that. So yes, it is possible. I have other friends who work as teaching assistants, people who can work at the library desk, all of these different options that OSU has. You can get paid to do research at OSU, which is beneficial. So there's lots of options that OSU offers in order for you to work while you're in school, and they're very accommodating with making sure it fits with your schedule and your study schedule too. And so OSU offers a lot of good opportunities for that. I'm not familiar with a lot of people who work outside of OSU during medical school. So I can't answer that question fully, but I'm sure there are people who do things like that. I know some girls will sell various products, like protein products and things like that. So there are some people who will do a little business on the side, but yes, OSU offers a lot of options to be able to work while you're in school, and it's great. Okay. Another question we have, unless anyone has any more questions, just send them in the chat and we'll answer them like that. But another question is, does it matter where you go for your undergraduate? No, it does not. Like I said, I went to the University of Oklahoma, rival school a little bit, but it does not matter whether you go to a big school, whether you stay in Oklahoma, whether you go to a small school. It does not matter what undergraduate you go to. OSU works really well with you no matter what school you're at during the application process, because they're looking at you as a person and you as a future physician and not you as a student from so-and-so school. So don't let that ever hold you back from looking into OSU, talking to us, wanting to go to this school, because like I said, they are looking at you as a whole person and not as someone who went to a specific school. So don't let that hold you back. Looks like we have another chat. Okay, it says, what are the best classes to take if you want to be a surgeon, and how long will it take to complete them? So I do not want to be a surgeon, so I can't probably answer this as well as some of my colleagues can, but I think the best thing to do just in general as you go into medicine is to take as many science courses as you can in addition to your prerequisites. That's something that I didn't do very well at. I kind of just took what I needed for prerequisites for medicine, but I would recommend that in addition to the prerequisites that schools require and that OSU requires, I would take other science courses that your undergrad university offers, because that's going to be very beneficial for you as you go through college, as you go through medical school, just to have a wider base of those science courses. And I would say in regards to surgery, that's a pretty competitive residency. And so for some of y'all who don't know the full process, you go to high school, you graduate, go to college, fulfill all your prerequisites, get a bachelor's degree, and then you'll go into medical school, which will be 4 years, and then you'll go into a residency. So your residency is your training after you've graduated medical school, and that's what's going to really teach you and license you to go into the specialty that you choose. And residencies can be competitive. So if you wanted to do surgery, it could be a little bit more competitive. So going back to the classes thing, if you've had a wider base of knowledge in all your sciences, you'll probably have a better understanding once you're in medical school of the classes that you're taking, and that will help you excel in those classes, which is something that you'll want to be doing in order to get into competitive residency. So I hope that answers your question in regards to that. Okay. The next question is, do you know what area of medicine you want to practice in after schooling? Is it important to know early on, or does this come later in schooling? Okay, so I kind of answered that a little bit just now. I know I don't want to go into surgery, and I think that that's an area that a lot of people first make it their decision in, is to decide if you want to work in the clinic, in the hospital, or if you want to work in surgery. A lot of people have told me that's the beginning decider. And so for me, I know that I don't want to do surgery. The OR is great. It's great for some people, but it's a different ball game than just clinical medicine. And so I do know that. But from there, I'm not entirely sure. If someone was to say, you have to decide right now, I would probably choose family medicine. I love getting to treat every single person who walks through the door, and to be able to treat them for their lifetime sounds really interesting to me. I love that. And so if I had to decide right now, that's what I would say. And OSU is really good at preparing primary care physicians. So I'm grateful to be in a place that could do that. But you don't have to know. I mean, I went all through high school saying that I was going to be an obstetric gynecologist and deliver babies. College, I had said the same thing, thinking that I knew what I was going to. I don't want to do that. And so you may think that you've decided early on, and if you have, that's awesome, but don't be worried that changing as you go through your schooling and as you go through your training is a bad thing. You really don't need to decide until you start doing rotations in your 3rd and 4th year of medical school, because that's when you'll start applying for those residencies like I talked about earlier. And so right now in high school and even in college, don't think that you have to have your whole life figured out. There's a lot of steps ahead of you that will give you the right tools and the right direction to really hone in on what you like most. It looks like we have another question. This one says, do you know anybody planning on being a psychiatrist, and where would they decide to work? Yeah, that's awesome. I do have a friend. She is a year older than me. She is going to be a psychiatrist. She loves it. Her mom is actually a psychiatrist in the Tulsa area who runs a clinic there, and she is planning on going into psychiatry residency and then going into the same practice that her mom is at once she's done. I know we also have a teacher at our school. His name's Dr. Beeman, and he is a psychiatrist, and he works in a lot of really cool areas. I can't name them specifically, but he shows us a really good way to use psychiatry in not just the clinical setting, but he's worked in courtrooms before. He's helped with forensic science cases. And so psychiatry actually opens up a lot of doors to not just clinical medicine, but helping in the community and working on various projects as well. And so, sorry I can't answer that question fully, but I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea that psychiatry actually has a lot of avenues to work with that specialty. Okay, let's see what our next question is. This one says, why did I decide to go to OSU's medical school? So I knew that there was something different about OSU from the first time that I stepped foot on campus. I went there, I think my junior year of college, and I got a tour and I walked around and I talked to some of the students and some of the faculty, and I immediately knew that this campus was different. Everybody was there to help you and to help you succeed, and there was no competition or any type of animosity between the students or the faculty. Everybody on staff was there to help you succeed. All the students were there to help each other succeed. And I could just feel that it was a very encouraging environment. And for me, I knew that school was going to be difficult. It wasn't, these 4 years in medical school weren't going to be a breeze. So I knew I needed to be around a community of people that were going to help me and were going to encourage me as best as possible to help me get through it. And so I knew that this environment was something that I wanted to be in. And then after realizing that, I looked more into the curriculum and looked more into how they did their schooling, and I realized that this really suited what I needed, and that was they have a lot of hands-on experience from the get-go. And so last year, during my first year, we were in the classroom learning, because in your first 2 years of medical school, it's primarily in the books, taking tests in the classroom. And so they did that, but they also incorporated, come my second semester, hands-on experience with patients, which was exactly what I needed, because for me, learning doesn't work very well just in a book, as I'm sure it doesn't for some of you either. I needed talking to a fake patient, putting my hands on a patient, doing OMM on them, things like that. And OSU offers that from the very get-go. And so I think that that is a huge part of our school, and why it makes it so great is because we're not just trying to make you book smart and make you know academic medicine. We are making you a well-rounded, good physician from the very start. And so I think the combination of the way OSU does their curriculum and the encouraging community that they facilitate made it the perfect place for me to be. Okay, the next question says, what's the difference between OSU and OU's medical schools? In addition, what is the difference in a DO and an MD? Okay, so OSU has a campus in Tulsa and in Tahlequah, just the logistics of it, and OU has a campus in Oklahoma City and in Tulsa. So those are just the logistics of it. OU's program is an MD program, and OSU's program is a DO program. I would say that that's probably the biggest difference in the schools. Again, they're both state schools. So if you're from Oklahoma, they are a little bit easier to get into as an Oklahoma resident than as a resident from a different state. So that's pretty similar on that. But like I said, the biggest thing is probably the training in DO and MD. And so I'll go into explaining what that looks like. And so an MD is an allopathic physician, and a DO is an osteopathic physician. Everything about being a physician as a DO and an MD is pretty much similar all the way down the list. What I would say the two differences are is your perspective and how you treat a patient and how you care for them, and then the training tools that you are given during medical school. And so I'll start with the tools. The biggest thing that we like to say is that DOs have the same amount of training as MDs, except for that we have 200 hours more, and that's training in OMM, which is osteopathic manipulative medicine. So for those of y'all who aren't sure what that is, like I wasn't sure what that was in high school, we learn how to manipulate the skeletal system in order to let the body function like it properly should. And so I'll just give an example of that, so hopefully it makes a little bit more sense. What we can do if someone ever has a sinus infection or some type of ear infection or thing like that, we actually know how to manipulate your lymphatic system, which is like a drainage system in your body, in order to get things flowing a little bit easier. And so we have been taught how to help with ear infections. There's a maneuver to kind of get the fluid flowing in there that we can teach moms to kind of help their kids not have such a bad ear infection. So that's something like that. We know how to manipulate your spine so that you're more aligned. There's little bitty tweaks in your body, little bitty maneuvers that can happen in order to help your body function better, but to also make you feel better. And so that is something that we learn that MD students do not learn. And so what we like to say is that's just an extra tool in our tool belt while we practice. Not every DO uses OMM, but every DO knows how to use OMM, and they have it in a case that they would like to use it for. And then, like I said, the second major difference, I think, between DO and MD, which also reflects OSU versus OU, is how DOs look at a patient. When we look at a patient, we look at them as a whole person, mind, body, and spirit. We're looking at not only that they have some lower back pain, but we're looking at what is their family life like? What is their work life like? What might be causing extra pain in their life that we could help facilitate and cause and help lower that stress also. And so not only are we looking at the whole person and the whole realm of what this disease is doing, but we're trying to prevent it also. And so we have a little bit more of a holistic approach to treating a patient, whereas sometimes MDs are more focused on just treating the disease or treating the problem, and less focused on seeing what the root is, what the whole cause is, and ways to prevent that in the future. And so that is kind of the difference between DO and MD. I hope that's helpful to you all. And I think that that also reflects kind of the difference between OU and OSU also. A follow-up question with this is, do DOs tend to practice primary care more? Looking at the data, yes, they do. And looking at OSU and OU, OSU does have a higher percentage of primary care physicians. I think that OSU's mission statement to practice in Oklahoma and in rural Oklahoma and to stay here in the state kind of facilitates that a little bit, because we want to stay here. We know we need primary care physicians in every area of the state, and so that's just kind of the nature of it. But however, if you want to specialize, OSU doesn't hold you back from that. Just like going into OU, if you want to do primary care, they're not going to hold you back from that. Both schools are pushing you to do what you desire to do. And so if you want to specialize and be a neurosurgeon and do surgeries on brains, then you can come to OSU, and I promise you every person in this school will help push you towards that goal and make sure that you're able to accomplish that. Okay, we've got some chats going on, so we'll check those out. Okay, the first one says, what kind of volunteer work do you need to do and how many hours do you need? Okay, so I don't believe that there is a specific amount of hours that you have to meet a goal in order to accomplish that. But you may want to check me on that, but I'm not in high school or college. Once you do get into college, and even a number of hours that you have to, but that's not something that we look at on an application and say they only had 100 hours, they didn't meet our minimum, and they have 1,000 hours, they're amazing. I think the biggest thing is we want to see that you are actively involved in helping the community in some way, shape, or form. For me, I volunteered at a free medical clinic all through college, and even now I got to do everything under the sun while I was there. I would bring patients back, I would dispense meds, I would clean rooms, I would sort files. We were in a time when we were transitioning from paper charts to electronic charts, and so I would scan papers all day, and so I did that all through college, which was a medical volunteering thing. But I also did things like go out on different homeless outreaches and bring lunches to the homeless community and things like that. I have friends who've gone to the dog shelters and walked dogs there and done stuff like that. And so I think the biggest thing is you should be getting some medical volunteering experience just so you can see what medicine is like. But also, if you love animals, go volunteer at the animal shelter. If you have a heart for homeless people, go bring lunches to homeless people. That's something that I think schools in undergrad and in medical school just want to see that you're passionate about something and that you put your time towards helping others. And so, like I said, no specific amount of hours, no specific volunteer, that you have to find something that you like and that you're going to enjoy. So this next one's D and or B programs. Do you think that they are worth it? Okay, I never thought about doing a dual degree program. You what?
Can you actually repeat that? It kind of froze up a little bit. We didn't hear it.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'll repeat it. Okay, so this question says, do you know anything about the BA, MD, and or ESMD programs? Do you think that they are worth it? I'm interested in doing a dual degree program, so I've not looked too far into it. However, I know OSU offers a lot of dual degree programs. I have a friend who does the BSDO program, and so he did some research during a year, and then I know that he wants to be a practicing physician in the community, but he also wanted to do a lot of research throughout his career. And so I think for him doing that, I think it was somebody correct, whoever asked this question may want to correct me. Are you talking about the dual degree programs that you get in medical school, like the MS-DO programs, or are you talking about the 3+1 programs in undergrad where you get your undergraduate degree in 3 years and then start medical school and go on through medical school and get your bachelor degree during your first year of medical school? Whoever asked that question, leave it in the chat and we'll clear up that confusion. The 3+1. Perfect. Okay. My bad. If anyone wants to talk about dual degree programs, we can talk about that later. The 3+1, yes, there are several people in my class who are doing that program. Let me just make sure I'm reading this question correctly. Do you think that they are worth it? I loved getting to go to college for 4 years. I loved the whole experience. I wouldn't have traded that. However, I know that the people in my class who are doing the 3+1, they're amazing. If you can do that, I applaud you because they are some of the smartest people that I know. And they just thought it was best for them, for their family situation, for their financial situation. And just because they could, they were smart enough to do that. They decided to do the 3+1, which was go to an undergraduate degree, I believe at OSU, for 3 years, and then go to OSU med school starting on their 4th year of college, which is their first year of medical school, and then completing their bachelor's degree during their first year of medical school while also getting their first year of medical school under their belt. So instead of spending 8 years in undergraduate and medicine in medical school, they've done it in 7 years. I think that they loved it. They haven't had any setbacks in school because they were in undergrad shorter than the rest of us were. I think they're actually excelling more than the rest of us, just because they already are really smart and able to do this. So I think that if it's best for you, if it's best for your family, if it's best for your financial situation, and if you can, I think that it's a great program. They've loved it. But if you want to have another year in undergrad, if you still feel like you haven't gotten all of your science knowledge and things like that, going for 4 years in undergrad and then going to medical school after isn't a problem either. And so I don't really think that there's a right or a wrong answer to this question. It's really just whatever suits you best. But I will encourage you and say that the people who have done it have excelled, and they've been really glad that they chose to do that. Okay. Let's see. The next question is an OD seen as more impressive to residency programs, and how common is this degree? Whoever asked that question may need to clarify for me too. An OD, or are you talking about a DO? As in osteopathic physician here at OSU. Just clarify that for me also so I know. Okay, the next question says, okay, DO. Is a DO seen as more impressive to residency programs, and how common is this degree? So the way that residency programs work now, which is not how they always worked, is that there is a merged match. And so I'll try to explain this as best I can. But after you graduate medical school, there's something called a match. And that is what matches you with a residency program. In the past, there was a DO match and an MD match. And there were residency programs that were more specific to MD programs, and there were residency programs that were more specific to DO programs. Now the match is joined to the same. So they're looking at all of you based on what your resume looks like, what your grades look like, what your recommendations look like. They're looking at that. So the question of, is it more impressive to be a DO in a residency program than an MD? I would say that more impressive on either has kind of disappeared. Since they are in a joined match category, they're looking at everything else about you, not necessarily if you are a DO or an MD, because like I said, they're the same list of things that you've learned in your same training, except for those few things I talked about with the DO. So like I said, all under the same umbrella. They're looking at you as a future physician, not necessarily what your training was like. And then I think the next part of that question said, how common is this degree? So I don't know the statistics necessarily. I do know that there are more MD programs in the US than there are DO programs, but I don't know, Ashley might know this better than I do, but I don't think that they're looked at any differently. There are more MD programs than there are DO, but it's not any less impressive or any fewer if you were to apply resident and it said DO or MD. Have you ever heard of that? Everybody knows what that match. They're looked at as the same, so it's not something that's going to hold you back or anything. Okay. The next question says, you wanted to become a doctor, and what did you major in? Okay, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I knew I'd wanted to be a physician since I was really little. Like I said, my family had some health issues, and so caring for my sisters really pushed me into that. And then going on medical mission trips in high school really solidified the idea that I wanted to go into medicine. I wanted to help people in some way or another. I loved science. I loved everything about medicine. So getting to do medicine and help people at the same time was the perfect world for me. And so all of those things combined made me want to go into it. But like I said earlier too, everybody has a different story. And if your story isn't like mine, that's okay. That's what makes you unique, and that's what's going to make you a good physician. Just know why you want to go into it and never forget that, because that's what's going to keep you going whenever you're taking all your tests or you're taking an MCAT or you're applying for college. Just always remember why you're doing it, because that'll keep you going. I think the second part of that question was what my major would be. And I didn't mention this earlier, but my minor had a little bit of a different undergraduate career than the rest of us. A lot of people did do biology or microbiology or physiology, but I loved what I majored in. And if you love something else like history or music, totally do it. It's not going to hold you back. You'll still do the same prerequisites as everyone else. So major in what you want to major in, and don't feel like you have to do science if you feel pressured to do that. You can do whatever you want and take the prerequisites for school. Okay. The next question says, is there anything that you would recommend I do now in high school that will benefit me when I get into medical school? So one thing that I did in high school, and this is a little bit off the schooling route, but I started shadowing physicians in high school. And not everyone has done that, but I would recommend to at least do that once, just so you can actually see what medicine is like. It's a long journey, and you have to be dedicated to it. And I think the earlier that you're exposed to what medicine is, the sooner you'll know if it's really for you or not. I know people who had never stepped foot in an OR or a clinic as someone who was shadowing before like the end of college, and they had been pre-med for so long and then realized that they didn't like it. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice, is to shadow somebody in high school so that you know and that you see that this is something you really want to do, because you have to be really dedicated to it. In regards to schooling, when I was in high school, I didn't have a lot of flexibility in what my classes were like, and so I kind of just took what we had to take. If your school offers other sciences like anatomy, it could be fun for you as a future pre-med student. But in regards to classes, enjoy high school. Take the classes that they tell you to take. If there are additional science classes and they interest you, go for it. I don't think that anything is really going to make or break you in your classes you take in high school. Do well on the ACT or the SAT so you can get into undergrad. And if there's classes at your high school that help you do that, then you could take those. But yeah, my biggest piece of advice would be shadow someone in high school so you have an idea of what medicine is like. Okay. This next question is, do a lot of people apply to both OSU and OU medical schools? And I would say yes. Everyone that I have known has pretty much applied to both. For those of you who don't know, um, if you are from Oklahoma, in-state tuition is a lot cheaper than out-of-state tuition. And so most people will apply to both OSU and OU. One, because they love them and they want to stay in state, but two, because it's drastically cheaper than going into another state. So, okay, another question says, how do you prepare for the MCAT? Do you have any advice for others, both in high school and in college, for undergrad? Okay, so the MCAT is a big test. For those of you who don't know, this test you will take before applying to medical school, and it's kind of like the ACT for medical school. It is actually an 8-hour long test, and it's pretty gruesome, but everybody's got to do it. And so, like I said, you take that before applying to medical school, and it does take a lot of preparation in order to do well on that test. You should take the majority of your prerequisite courses before you take the MCAT. That's why they recommend you taking it your junior year of college, because you are almost finished with most of those prerequisites. One of the ones that really helped me in taking the MCAT was biochemistry. Taking that in undergrad, I think, is a requirement. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember, but even if it's not a requirement, I recommend that you take it. It helps you a lot in the MCAT, so doing that is really beneficial. But in regards to prepping for the MCAT, other than the classes that you already take in undergrad, there's a lot of options. I know that Kaplan offers a couple courses. There's a book series called Exam Crackers that offers a lot of material for you to study and look through. And then Khan Academy is something that I always used in high school. I'm not sure if y'all know what that is, but they offer tons of videos for the MCAT, which is what I ended up doing. I used all the Khan Academy videos, watched those religiously, and then I also did some of the Exam Crackers workbooks that they offered. But those are all different forms, different study tools that you can use. And as you get closer to taking, I might have cut out for a second, but as you get closer to taking the MCAT, you can explore all of those options and you can ask around. But I think the biggest piece of advice for everyone, regardless of what form of study tools you use, is that you need to do practice tests. That's something that I wish I would have done more of. You need to do tons and tons and tons of practice tests. I can't say it enough. The MCAT is a long test, and you need to prepare your mind and your body in order to withstand that long of a test. It's probably going to be one of the longest tests you take in your life. And so what you need to do is you need to practice. You need to practice on Saturday morning and wake up at 6 a.m. and take it like you would on the day of your test. And I know that kind of sounds like a lot. And I know if I was in high school and heard this, it would seem scary and maybe freak me out a little bit, but that's just the nature of going into medicine, is you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit, and doing practice tests on the weekends in the early morning when you don't want to, that's going to be most beneficial for you in this test. And that's something that I wish I would have done more of. There may have been a second part to that question, so I'll go look. Do you have any advice for others, both in high school and in college, for undergrad? I feel like I've given most of my advice things. I think one thing that I didn't mention that was really beneficial for me as I was going through the process of getting into medical school in high school and in college was when you do shadow, when you do volunteer in a medical setting, write that stuff down. Write down when you did it, what it looked like, who it was with, and any important or influential, experience that you had. You're going to be asked so many times why you want to go into medicine, what has impacted you in medicine, what you have seen in medicine that is something that has impacted you or changed you or things like that. And as much as we all want to think that we'll remember everything, we don't. And so my dad encouraged me from high school to keep an Excel log of everywhere that I shadowed, every doctor that I came in contact with, just so I had that to jog my memory when people did ask me questions and when I did have to start applying. And so I think that that is another really big piece of advice, is write it down, but also remember what those experiences were like. Even if it's in high school, even if it's before high school, if you did something in elementary school that has drastically changed your life in medicine, then write it down so that you can come back to that and remember that for interviews, for applying, for any time someone asks you about an impactful experience that you've had in medicine. I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I have gotten throughout this journey, and it's helped me so much to be able to look back and say, okay, I remember this experience. So-and-so had this disease and it blew my mind, and I learned all these things about it, and it's impacted me even more to go into medicine. And so I think that is something that I would recommend all of you start doing now, even if it does sound a little early. I would recommend doing that now. Okay. This says, how far in advance did you begin practicing? Is this practicing for the MCAT? Is that what this question is asking? I just want to make sure. Yes, for the MCAT. Okay. So like I said, everybody studies for the MCAT a little bit differently. But for me, the best way for me to do it was to spend 3 months prior to my test. So my test was in April, and I believe I started studying in beginning of February or end of January. And so I planned out a 3-month schedule. And I think for the first month, I didn't do any practice tests just because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was just trying to get all this material under my belt. And then during the second and third months is when I started doing just individual practice questions. And then I started doing like full length tests during that time. Also, I did not do this, but I did have a friend who, I think a month and a half before his test, he took a practice test every Saturday. And so if that's something that you're up to do, then that would be great. He did really, really well. It's something I wish I probably would have done. But most people I know spend about 3 months doing it. Some people have spent about 6 months studying for the MCAT. It really depends on you. I knew that I wasn't going to retain the information that long, and that I would slowly start to grow weary in studying. So you can look them up. You can ask people. There's lots of different plans, but I think the most common one is about 3 months prior to your test date. Okay, this next question says, can you run? Yes, we'll finish the rest of these questions just to make sure we get everything done. So we just have a few more questions, and then if we have any time left, we'll finish up the chats, but we're almost done with the questions that I have listed. The next one says, how much schooling is there to become a physician? And so I've kind of touched on this a little bit, but you'll finish high school, which will take 4 years, and then you'll go into undergrad, and that will take 4 years, and then you'll go into medical school, which will take 4 years as well, and then after graduating medical school, you will go into residency. Residency is varying in length based on what your specialty is, but typically people say between 3 to 5 years. So that's 4 of high school, 4 undergrad, 4 of med school, so that's 12, and then 3 to 5. And so it's a long time, but it's worth it, and there's new things to enjoy in every step of the way. The next question says, did it ever seem like this was too much, or do you think that all the schooling will be worth it? Like I just said, it's totally worth it. If it's something that you love, going back to what I said at the beginning, know why you want to do this. If it's something you love and you know for sure why you're doing it, then every step of the way is going to be enjoyable. And every time you complete each step, it's just going to bring you one step closer into finally completing your dream. And so it's totally worth it. Schooling is long, but you'll make it through. When do I start getting paid? So you start getting paid once you start residency. So you'll graduate medical school, and then for the years during residency, you will start getting paid, which is super exciting. So that's when that starts. What do I most enjoy about medical school, and what is my favorite subject? I most enjoy getting to spend time with the standardized patients, which are our paid actors who come in and let us interview them and treat them. That's my favorite part because it gives me a little bit of a taste of what it'll actually be like to be a physician. Um, so what is my favorite subject then? One of our classes is called Clinical Cares Foundations, and that is when we learn how to do hands-on things like draw blood, take blood pressure, do things like that. And so I guess that's not technically a subject, but that's my favorite thing that we have done in school so far, is getting to learn all of those skills. Okay. What has been the most challenging thing about medical school, and what is the toughest subject? Oh, I think the most challenging part is just adjusting to this new. There's some of the longest days that I'm waking up at 5 and studying before class, and then going to class, and then studying after class. It's long, and it's different than anything that I had ever done before. And so I think just adjusting to that routine, how long the days can be, and then adjusting to the amount of material that's thrown at you as well. I had never had this much material and difficult material thrown at me before in my schooling. And so trying to get a grasp around it, I'm probably not going to know everything as well as I used to know things, and just kind of accepting that, but trying to learn as much as I can. That was an adjustment as well. And so I think just adjusting to this new school and this new level of training in your school was the biggest part. The toughest subject for molecular biology, for those of you who have taken that yet, very detailed, very intricate, lots to memorize, lots to try to understand, and a lot of material. I think that class we had that last fall, and that class had the most material of any class we've had. And it was just a lot to take in, and it was a course that I had never taken before. So I guess little piece of advice, take molecular biology in undergrad, it'll help you. But that's been the toughest subject for me. And we have a few more questions. It says, what advice do you have for high school students looking to become a physician, and what should they be doing now? I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, that I think that in high school you should definitely shadow if you have the opportunity to do so. Shadow a physician in your community, even if it's only one time, so that you can have a better understanding of what it looks like to practice medicine. Like I said, I feel like a lot of people come into this not knowing what it's actually like, and you need to get some experience in that just to see and to know and help you solidify that this is what you want to go into, because like we've talked about, it's a long road, and you have to be dedicated to it. So I think that was my first biggest piece of advice for high school students, is to shadow someone. And then my second one was to start making a list now of what you have done, what experiences you have had, and then to continue that through college. So you have that as a memory tool to look back on, what you've done and what has influenced you. And so those are my two biggest pieces of advice for you all. I don't know what Ashley wants to do now. We've run through all of our questions, if we want to answer any more chats or what's up next, but that's been all of our questions so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will give you guys about a minute. If you have any more questions for Ellie, probably wrap it up in at least 10 minutes. So make sure you send those over. Ellie, you've done a fantastic job of running through all these questions and everything that, we get questions about all the time from prospective high school students. So thank you for presenting all of this today.
Yeah, for sure.
And Ellie, do you want to tell us just a little bit of background about yourself? Where's your hometown? Where'd you go to high school?
Yeah, I guess I should have started with that. Sorry, you guys. But I'm actually from Edmond, Oklahoma. I went to a small private Christian school called Oklahoma Christian School. I went there K through 12, grew up there. Then, like I said, I went to University of Oklahoma for undergrad down in Norman, and then now I'm living up in Tulsa at OSU. So that's kind of been what I've done. I haven't ever really traveled outside of Oklahoma for schooling, but I love it. I love staying home and being close to my family, and this is where I want to stay forever. So I'm happy to be here.
Perfect. All right, well, I guess we will wrap it up. Well, thank you guys all for attending today. This will all be posted on our main website, so feel free to come back and watch it through. I know there's a ton of valuable information in here. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I can pass that on to Ellie if you want to ask her any questions.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for attending. Thank you, Ellie, for presenting, and thanks for coming to OSU Medicine 411.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day.